As you all know, my wife, Amy Elliott Dunn, disappeared 3 days ago.
Suspense thriller Gone Girl continues to finish in the top 3. Despite opening more than a month ago, it wrapped up this weekend with $6 million.
Everybody ready to say goodbye to our solar system? To our galaxy?
Christopher Nolan's sci-fi epic Interstellar raked in $50 million. The second-place finish proves that even big names like Matthew McConaughey and Jessica Chastain can't guarantee number 1.
Does it hurt when I touch it?
No, it's okay. No touching.
And stealing this week's top spot is Disney's Big Hero 6, an animated film inspired by the Marvel superhero team. It finished with $56 million. Jason Gorber is a critic with twitchfilm.com and joins us now. Jason, you see that? We got fancy new graphics and everything. They didn't tell me about that. They didn't tell me about that.
Play with the graphics.
Christopher Nolan, did he get a good one?
No.
Oh, okay, next topic.
Well, Interstellar is 100% worth seeing, and it's not very good. And that's a contradiction, I'm aware, but so is the film, for that matter. If you have a chance to see it on a real IMAX screen, on one of the big, giant, enormous actual film screens, it's definitely worth seeing, because visually it does some pretty interesting things. But it's 3 hours long.
3 hours?
And it tries so hard to be relevant and philosophical and deep, and it just does not come across. It's like it's an assemblage of all kinds of ideas that just never come together. And it's one of those dangerous things about films like this, that it thinks it's much smarter than it is. It's like, if I'm going to explain this to you in very cool and hard detail, you will get that this is an important film, and it falls apart, unfortunately. And yet it's still worth seeing, because you should totally go see it.
But it's really 3 hours long?
3 hours long, yeah.
Whoa.
And it feels even longer, I swear to God.
That's a lot of popcorn. Disney, they always hit one, sort of.
Yeah, they should. Again, this is a film that some people really, really like, Big Hero 6. For me, it only sort of worked. And again, it's strange that both of these films are coming out in the same weekend, because in some ways this film is actually very similar to Interstellar in terms of its storyline.
I thought that too, seeing the commercials for it.
Yeah, it's very much. I mean, this one's sort of a weird collision of a bunch of other things that sort of Pixar's associated with, which are Brad Bird films. So if you take a little bit of Incredibles and a little bit of Iron Giant, you kind of get Big Hero 6. Takes a bunch of obscure cartoon comic book characters from Marvel and Disney-fies them. It kind of comes together, but it's nowhere near as good as something like Frozen, which I'm sure many people out there have seen so many times that they've forgot how good Frozen is. It's okay, it just doesn't come together as much as we would have liked it to.
Does this mean that I missed 5 other big heroes?
Well, they get together at the end. It's like, it literally, you're watching it like, man, this just makes me want to watch Incredibles again. Because Incredibles is incredible, and this is not.
Okay, Remembrance Day coming up. I want to get your impressions of which films out there that you have seen, and I know you've seen about 8 million movies, sort of encapsulate the Canadian War experience.
Yeah, this is kind of funny, because we don't really have that many films that actually showcase the Canadian experience. We sort of have to look sometimes for other things. Yes, there's some films that have been made that are not particularly good, but I want to look at 2 that are exceptional. One's The Great Escape, which, yes, is a big Hollywood film, but the story it tells is actually a Canadian story. It's a Canadian-British story. When they made it and brought in Steve McQueen and did it all Hollywood, it's an incredible film just to watch as a film, but the story behind it is actually quite harrowing and definitely gets to the sort of ambivalence of the war. Everybody just remembers the daring do and the big, action sequences, but it's actually quite a moving and quite an emotional film with a pretty downer ending as per the real events. And so, given the fact that the story itself, the historical events actually were based on a Canadian story, it's definitely a film, like a historical film that I think is worth checking out.
And the second one?
And the second one, yeah, Bridge Over River Kwai. Again, another big American film. Lots of bombast, and shows a little bit that there's a Canadian character actually in the movie. And again, when the Canadian troops got integrated in the British military, they themselves went through their own sacrifices. And Kwai shows very much that whatever the war, whatever the theater of conflict, it's the soldiers, the tenacity they have, and the fights and the sacrifices they make, so that people like you and I can just sit around and watch silly movies and enjoy ourselves. So at a time to remember, these are 2 films that on the surface seem like big Hollywood productions that are just for entertainment, but underneath have incredibly strong messages. I mean, you have stuff like Paths of Glory. You have some of the most incredible films ever made, Apocalypse Now, that look at the complexities of conflict and at the same time recognizing the sacrifices and the real contributions that members of our armed forces do towards sort of fulfilling our role as a democracy.
Jason, thank you very much.
All the best. Take care, Scott.